Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Damiano Meola, Marketing Director at Data Appeal, and we are excited to dive into a special session, how Helsinki uses data to drive sustainable tourism and collaborate with stakeholders. It's a unique opportunity to explore how one of Europe's most forward-thinking destination is turning data into impact, and what others can learn from it. So I'm thrilled to be here with two special guests. Henna, Senior Advisor, Helsinki Tourism and Destination Management. Thank you, Henna, to be here.
Thank you.
And Virginia Viviani, our in-house expert on travel data and trends. Just to say that we'll wrap up with a Q&A session. So please feel free to submit your questions in the Zoom chat at any time during the webinar. We'll collect them and answer as many as we can at the end. Just a couple of words about Data Appeal before we dive in. At Data Appeal, we help destinations cut through complexity and make smarter, faster, more aligned decisions backed by data. We know that managing diverse stakeholders, from residents and visitors to politicians and investors, is no easy task. That's why our solutions are designed to support you at every stage. Assess visitor behavior and travel trends, plan strategies that match real needs and priorities, track performances and impact over time, share clear insights with stakeholders in a way everyone understands, and then repeat the cycle with confidence and clarity, all without needing to be a data expert. So now let's get started. And Henna, we're seeing more and more travelers heading north during the summer, Helsinki included. How is the city responding to this shift in seasonal demand? Are we witnessing the birth of a new kind of peak season?
Well, that's a good question, and I would answer that yes and no. And let me please explain my answer to you. Summer has actually traditionally been a very popular time to visit Helsinki. We have many seasonal activities to explore in Helsinki, so that might be the reason why summer especially is so attractive, because most of the routes in the archipelago areas, you can see here in my beautiful background, they typically run only in the summer, although we do have some beautiful winter activities in Suomenlinna, for example, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and is open all year round. But interestingly, also to sort of a counterfact to your question, why winter is actually starting to be more interesting than summer, is that we actually have a higher visitor sentiment score in the winter months than in the summer. I could see from the data appeal data that March and April actually were higher in sentiment than summer months, which was a bit of a surprise for us and a good indication that winter is starting to be more attractive as well. And then also all the way since last November, we have had record number of months. So each month we have broken the last record, and we're also expecting this growth to continue to the summer season. So that's also a very good indication. But then again, why I would say that yes, summer is becoming more interesting, it's because of the unfortunate climate change and the rise of these coolcations. So yes, we do expect summer to stay strong or even increase in demand for that season. But then again, compared to many other Nordic capitals, Helsinki doesn't really have an over-tourism issue, or that we would have less and less hotel capacity. Actually, vice versa, we have grown in our hotel capacity and we have more and more rooms to fill. So when visitors come to Helsinki, they can see that there's a very, very good selection of hotels and accommodations here, and they don't see the prices fluctuate as much in many other bigger European cities. So the prices stay relatively competitive even for the summer season, which is a good indication for the visitors, of course. But then if you cross-compare that to some of the event data and the analysis we can get from Data Appeal's online travel agency focus, we can see that the average daily rates, especially if it overlaps with major events in the summer season, those are typically the trends where we can expect a bit of more higher price range. So then booking early is very recommended for the visitors in that aspect. Are you happy with the answer?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really interesting, especially the fact that visitor sentiment was actually higher, for example, in March and April, as we can see here. Virginia, any comments on this?
Well, sure, of course. Data shows a clear increase in overall sentiment comparing 2024 with 2023. As mentioned, particularly, there are these two peaks in March and April, which suggest a period of especially positive visitor experience. And this kind of trend is a strong indicator of improving perception and engagement within the destination. So.
Perfect. Cool. And earlier this year, we know that Helsinki was named the world's most sustainable travel destination by the GDS index. But beyond the numbers, what really sets Helsinki apart, Henna?
Well, again, here it's many aspects. We are very consistently performing well in global sustainability indexes, especially in the environmental areas. So we have a very strong track record of performing well in these aspects. And last year, as you mentioned, we ranked first in global destination sustainability index in destination management aspect, also in supplier performance and environmental performance. And besides the GDS #1 placement, we also received this year the Green Destination certification, which is in line with the GSTC criteria. That is one of the strictest criteria for sustainable tourism destinations. And to achieve it requires full compliance of the criteria. So you can expect that we have done a lot of work to be in this position. And we do encourage other destinations to also achieve the same. We were also the first city of a population over 500,000 to be awarded with the GSTC certification. So it's a big win for us, to say the least. But how do we achieve this then? Well, why do we achieve this? We do have a very strong role in supporting the local businesses in becoming more sustainable, both financially and through guidance. We have more than 1,200 pages of public reports, tools, etc. on our website that will help businesses with their sustainability progress. And we can see also a very strong commitment from the local businesses in sustainability. There's a high share of certified companies. The National Sustainable Travel Finland program has been very widely adopted by the companies. And then in the GDS index, we're leading in ecosystem engagement especially. But then we also have very strong political support in sustainability. Our strategy is backed up by city leadership. We have a clear action plan, KPIs, monitoring in place, and a very strong legislative base. For example, sustainability is embedded in the Finnish national law, unlike in many destinations. So that is a good benchmark to tell your local politicians if you want to have the same in other destinations. Also in the city values, it's written down that the city values are openness, equality, sustainability, and achieving to have a safe living environment. And then when it comes to data, in monitoring and improving the sustainability aspects, we have a very strong data-driven approach. For example, what we can see from Data Appeal, the semantic analysis is really interesting, and it helps us to understand what visitors are expecting from sustainable services and what might be some key areas of development in that aspect. And to continue with the visitors' perception, a lot of these sustainability actions, they are taken at the back office. It's not really that visible to the visitors, so we really need to listen to them, look at the data and see what are they perceiving, and is there something we need to communicate to them even more. So therefore, the visitor communication plays a key role in what we can see from the data and how can we react based on it.
Yeah, sure. So basically, sustainability by design, it seems.
Yeah.
Yeah, that blend of systemic support and local culture, I think, is really powerful. And Virginia, which are the most popular industries and attractions?
When analyzing the attractions in Helsinki, beyond the well-known museum and churches, parks stands out, ranking 4 in our chart, and not only because the POI distribution in the territory or the high volume of centimeter interaction, but also because of the exceptionally positive sentiment they generate. Looking at the workload, we get further insight into what matters most to the visitors when it comes to attractions. Key recurring topics include cultural activities, location, emotional engagement, and being family friendly. So this connects very well with what Henna just said. And these topics suggest Helsinki's visitors value the holistic approach to sustainability that goes beyond environmental impact, but include also cultural, emotional, and social dimensions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And let's talk data even more. In 2024, Helsinki broke its record for overnight stays. And Anna, can you walk us through how data, including sentiment and behavior tracking, played a role in that growth?
Well, overall, data-driven decision-making is a strategic priority in Helsinki, both in the city strategy decided by the politicians and also in our own tourism and event action plan. Data-driven decision-making and knowledge management is a very, very key strategical interest for us and choice for us. We have clear KPIs, like I mentioned before, and we do monitor our progress in that regard. We don't typically make any decisions based on gut feeling if we have reliable and validated data to back up the decision-making progresses. And we have a strong track record in sharing open data as well. For example, Helsinki Region InfoShare, that is an open data service that the city of Helsinki provides. It has shared open data since 2011. So over a decade, we have been sharing open data and including that in our own decision-making processes. And when it comes to behavioral data and sentiment data from the visitors, we have actually launched a visitor experience management model. And this is again a key tool in our strategy. And it combines insights from our own digital surveys and platforms like Data Appeal to get that overall understanding of the visitors' experiences and wishes and expectations for the destination. And this whole model was involved or developed together with our key stakeholders and private parties in Helsinki destination, meaning the local tourism and event businesses. So we could see that there was a high awareness of data value. And then whatever we can gather from the data, we actually have a clear process of what we can take forward to related parties so we can take action and make sure that we have transformation in the destination based on the data. So we don't just look at data and discuss it and report it, but we actually take action and then monitor the progress in order to make a transformational change in the destination. Perhaps some examples, what has happened, what might be interesting for the audience here.
Yeah.
Based on the data, we have actually chosen some campaign themes. For example, you may have heard that Finland has been named or is the happiest country in the world for 7 years in a row. And it had to be 7 years before we actually started to believe it ourselves and took it into one of the key messages in our own campaigns. And another thing that we can see from data that we discussed actually in the first question was that winter is becoming more attractive. So we don't necessarily see weather anymore as a deal breaker. We can see that visitors want to come all year round, and they're expecting very good services and activities in each season. So we have actually we are aiming at having major events, congresses, and P2P meetings all year round. And Helsinki functions very well in any weather. We have flights operating in even minus 40 degrees Celsius. So it's a very good home base for all kinds of seasonal activities and operations. And just to name one last example, we have now achieved in having all year round international cruise ships arriving to the harbor of Helsinki, which is something that is a very good sign that we have a year-round cruise industry, and we can evenly pace the cruise ships that are arriving here even in the winter season. And we have the first turnaround ships arriving to Helsinki in 2026. So another very good change that has been led through data and what we saw that the destination needs.
Sure. 7 years in a row. That's a lot. That's a lot. So it's not just reporting, but actually acting, you said, on insights, having an impact. And Virginia, any thoughts on how sentiment analysis can inform destination decisions?
Absolutely. We've seen that destinations who integrate sentiment into their planning, like Helsinki did, not only improve visitor satisfaction, but also drive repeat visits and positive word of mouth. And it's that feedback loop that makes the difference.
Absolutely, it is. I'm a fan of feedback loop. Yeah. And moving on, Henna, you've created a curated group of points of interest that represent businesses driving Helsinki's growth. How do you collaborate with them in practice? How do you engage with these key stakeholders?
Yeah, so we have a very, very good network of local businesses that work closely with us. We call them the Makers of Helsinki Network. It consists of about 150 businesses that work in tourism, event, and restaurant sectors. And the members are committed to our strategy, values, and guidelines, and they actually pay to be a part of the network and get all of the benefits that come with being a part of the network. We have active engagement through seminars, meetings, online communication. They share insights as much as we share insights with them, and then they collaborate closely with us in projects and pilots and campaigns, for example. We do also joint data work. So we have actually looked at data appeals data together with some of the business partners and analyzed what we can learn from the data and how it actually represents the conclusions to them specifically regarding their own business. One good example is when we did an analysis and cross comparison of museums in Helsinki. What were the visitors' experiences and feedback? What were the sentiment scores and areas for development when it came to museums? We shared this with the network, and we got some further questions and comments. But there was one partner in our network that was saying that, okay, I can see that I'm not in the list or in the sector. I'm not visible in my Google profile as much as I should be. What should I do in order to be in your lists or in these analysis in the future? So we actually help them to improve their digital visibility. This is very, very important for the businesses to be a part of these peer-to-peer digital channels that get feedback from customers and also respond to the customers' feedback and increase the attractiveness and reliability of how the destination feels when it is very active and visually or digitally visible. So that's one good example. And then we also offer tailored support to some of our key key partners. So if they want hand-on-hand support on what they could do in order to improve their business, we can also offer that to them.
So it's like a coaching, showing guidance and working together as a destination, of course.
Yes, I would like to comment on that, because actually one of the good feedback we received from our partners was that they were saying that, oh, it's good that the city has taken a motherly role in this.
Okay. Coming back, Virginia, to data and charts. Why do you think this works so well in Helsinki?
Well, I think it's very important to involve the local operators in the territory, and actually, as in the Helsinki case, to focus on the stakeholders network. It's really interesting to see how everyone participates in the community and do his best to reach common and shared goals.
Absolutely, yes. And let's talk about something hard to influence, which is the sentiment around a physical location. And in Helsinki's case, scores have improved. We know that. And Henna, how do you explain this shift, I would say?
I think it has been a trend for a longer period of time, but I think more and more local operators are realizing that they do need to be active and visible in digital channels. Perhaps some credit can be taken by us by actively sharing results with them and having this active discussion with the operators and just reminding them to be active. To have this sort of a sense of positive competition when they can compare their own results with other companies and benchmark their results. And also this might spark a bit of an engagement when you're shown statistics and comparisons across sectors and even competitors in this regard. One interesting insight that perhaps needs still a bit further analysis from the data is that we have seen in many cases that domestic visitors tend to give lower ratings than international visitors. So for some reason, Finns are very, very reluctant to give the 5-star score on a service. They would rather give a 4.5 or even 4 and saying that it was excellent, but there's always room for improvement. So I would argue based on that the more international feedback we can get from visitors, the better the scores are. But that is just one tiny detail from the data. But overall, I think that it's really important to encourage businesses to be active and also respond to feedback. And then this visitor experience management model is of course one thing that may have improved the scores in general. Something that we're also working on is a digital influence program, which has an intake of about 20 companies at one time. And then we actively support them and offer them coaching in how they can improve this in these digital channels, their own visibility and therefore their own feedback and sentiment scores.
Yeah, so a lot of coaching, digital coaching, and also, but you have international lovers. This is the this is the result. Cool, very impressive. Virginia, any data-driven thoughts to wrap up on this topic?
Well, yes, it's interesting to see that things that visitors appreciate more are tied to key topics, like, as we said, atmosphere, emotional engagement, staff service, hospitality. And the work clouds shows this really clearly. It highlights what people like the most. And those are the things Helsinki and their partners can keep focusing on to make visitor experience even better.
Yes, absolutely. So let's say that we can have a look on, I would cherry pick a few questions from the Zoom chat. So let me see what we have. Yes, I need to double check here. Let me see if you have any questions. At the moment, no, cannot see any questions. You can use the, as I said, the Zoom chat here, and we can address it. In the meantime, I would like to stress the stakeholders alignment, I would say. And during our workshops with destination managers, clients, I would say that at the end of the day, more they talk about not data sources, but mainly about how to engage and keep aligned all the stakeholders. Someone said even how to make everybody happy. Could you reinforce, comment on this, because I think this is one of the main pain points, I would say, out there among the destination managers.
Yeah, it's I would agree with the statement. It's very important to be actively engaged to your local network operators. And if you as a DMO representative don't listen to your local businesses, then how are you ever aiming at developing the destination? Because that needs to be done together with the stakeholders and not something that you do separately and the stakeholders do something totally different. But I would slightly disagree on the fact that you have to make everybody happy. When you are working in a DMO and aiming at reaching your strategic goals, you cannot always please everybody. Somebody will be upset regardless what you choose. So therefore, you just have to react to those feedback and just argue very well with data to support your arguments and decisions.
By data, we can have these kind of conversations.
Exactly.
Sure. So data as a way even of, I would say, gain consensus around a topic. And yeah, we have just one question, and then I think we can wrap up. How do you collaborate across the region and bring unity?
Good question. Could you elaborate? Do you mean by the region, a city or a specific municipality, or for example, a country? In this regard, I could answer from both
Sure.
from the Helsinki perspective, but also from the Finnish perspective, what we can do in the nation overall.
Julia, can you please elaborate on this country and capital?
Yeah,
Country and capital
I
level.
was sort of expecting you to say that. Well, Finland is a very small country, geographically very large, one of the biggest in Europe, but in terms of how many people live in the country, it's very small. So therefore, across the DMOs and with Visit Finland, we have realized that we do need to cooperate in order to make any positive change happen in the country overall. So we do have actually very systematic and regular meetings and online communication that we do across the country with other DMOs and with Visit Finland to make sure that we're on track. We do share the same strategy for the nation. And then, of course, every DMO or every city might have a slightly different strategy, but everything sort of overlaps with the national strategy. And that, again, is in line with the European tourism strategy, etc., etc. So as long as you have this everything, all of the actions in line together, and you have a close discussion and communication with other DMOs and with the national tourism board, then that actually enhances the cooperation. The more you know the other people and can trust them, the better chances you have at doing collaborative work with them.
So consistency, as always, as in communication, is a key word here. Thank you very much, Henna. Virginia, this was a really super focused question. So thank you even from the chat. Thank you, Henna. This is a fantastic insight into the collaboration. Thank you, Julia. So having said that, I would like to really thank you, Henna, for the incredible work you're doing, and Virginia for sharing with us data and insights. So thank you very much, and talk soon. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.